Here's Brody Brazil.
We've definitely got some interesting breaking baseball news to discuss here on a Wednesday. And look, for the last 10 months or so, it started to feel pretty obvious that the Minnesota Twins were going to be sold. In October of 24, the Pohlad family said that they were starting the process of exploring a sale of the Minnesota Twins, something that had been in their family for decades. And in recent months, we got updates on the process, and reports were that there were interested parties. And even as recent as about a month ago, baseball's commissioner Rob Manfred said he was confident the transaction would take place. Well, today, the Pohlad family has done a complete 180 to come out and say that the Minnesota Twins are no longer for sale. And I know you're looking at that photo of Carlos Correa with Joe Pohlad there and saying, wait, Correa's not even on the team anymore. He was part of that trade deadline day fire sale. He goes back to the Houston Astros, and the Twins retained most of his salary and didn't get much back. Yeah, that's all part of this equation too. I know that's not a current photo. I mean, he's not on the team anymore. That's part of this whole situation, and probably how fans are feeling right now, confused about the direction and what's going on, and fans who are largely looking forward to turning a page, starting a new chapter of Twins baseball with a different ownership group. Now, apparently, it's going to be the Pohlads taking on more ownership entities as part of the bigger picture. So they're inviting new owners in with different stakes of the Minnesota Twins. Maybe a case of too many cooks in the kitchen now for the Minnesota Twins. At least that's maybe how the fans are feeling about this entire scenario. Let me start with the background here before we get into the Pohlad family statement, what they're doing, what they're thinking here. Carl Pohlad bought the baseball team for, I think, $45 million or so in 1984. He passed away in 2009. The team has been owned since then by generations of the family. There are 20 grandchildren of Carl Pohlad who have had various roles and degrees of ownership of this team. Joe Pohlad was named the executive chair of the Twins in late 2022. In 2024, not this season, but last season, the team cut their payroll $30 million at one point. They also, in the offseason from last year to this year, lost their television deal with Bally Sports North. And then this year at the trade deadline, they traded 9 players away, basically a third of their roster, including players like Carlos Correa, on the deadline day. Got rid of a ton of money. So fans are wondering, is this part of the sale? Is this part of the transaction? What exactly is happening here? Well, it now also kind of leads to more confusion. The Pohlad family statement says this, quote, over the past several months, we explored a wide range of potential investment and ownership opportunities. Our focus throughout has been on what's best for the long-term future of the Twins. We have been open to all possibilities. After a detailed and robust process, our family will remain the principal owner of the Minnesota Twins, end quote. And there's a larger statement than that the team and the family, the Pohlad family, put out. But it was kind of clear that maybe all of the Pohlads didn't want to be part of this anymore, and that was kind of the reason of the sale. And they said they were going to look for somebody who wanted to keep the team where they were in the Twin Cities, somebody who wanted to build on the franchise, somebody who could take the next steps for the franchise. So it's interesting that they had a vision of what they wanted and probably a sale price that they wanted, and they didn't get something out of it there, or they all changed their minds. It's a little bit confusing on exactly how this played out, because the vision of the sale was so clear, and now to do a 180 on it 10 months later doesn't necessarily make all the sense in the world, at least externally, and I know that's how a lot of fans are going to view this as a bit shocking. Joe Pohlad had this comment to the Minnesota Star Tribune, and this is where he talks about taking on these additional partnerships. Maybe this is more of a business thing, to take on some additional security, to take on some additional investment, more than trying to turn a chapter of Twins baseball. Joe said this, quote, I don't think we could have imagined a better outcome than where we landed. We found 2 great partners and have already developed some pretty solid relationships with them. There is alignment on how we see the Twins moving forward, and also in our belief in the future of baseball in Minnesota. So I feel happy that this sale process has come to an end, and thrilled with the partners we've brought on. So if the whole process was to try and bring on partners, that could have been advertised differently. Was it a sale process that led you to figuring out you just needed more partners in all of this, and that's the new direction? Because if so, then the whole thing really never happened as a sale process. This is more like an investment process. During the sale process, we found out several things, and most of this is from the spring of 2025, a piece put out by The Athletic, including Dan and Ken and Brittany, and what they put out. The Pohlad family was seeking about a $1.7 billion sale price. So look, maybe they didn't get it. Maybe they wanted more than that. Maybe they could not all agree on what the sale price should be. Do they really want to get this off their hands? Are they trying to maximize the value? But apparently, and reportedly by The Athletic, multiple parties had shown interest and intent at that price. So what happened here? The Twins, also behind the scenes, have accrued more than $425 million of debt. I've heard that number has gone up to $450. Look, that's a very high figure for a Major League Baseball team. Some debt you'd have to understand is normal, but to sell the team for 1.7 and understand that they've got to hash out this $450 million of debt as part of this sale, that makes things a lot more complicated. In addition to being in a small market and a TV deal that went away, all of those things could have presented challenges with the sale process. It was also said during the sale process, which turned into an investment process, that the league, Major League Baseball, wanted a new ownership group to have strong ties to Minnesota, right? So no question about moving the team or going away from Target Field. There was also the report that Joe Pohlad wanted to keep his control of the club, right? So any ownership group that he was going to sell to, he would want to retain some certain position within inside the team to help keep it running. Maybe that was part of this sale but not sale situation, that Joe Pohlad just didn't want to let go of where he was at. And if anybody else bought in, maybe he found out that nobody was agreeable to that type of scenario. Justin Ishbia was somebody who showed great interest in buying the Minnesota Twins. He and his family backed out and actually invested even more into the Chicago White Sox. Justin Ishbia is now kind of lined up, so to speak, to have the option and the window to purchase the White Sox from Jerry Reinsdorf in like 5 or 6 or 7 years. That's also a very weird scenario. The Twins also do not own Target Field, so you can add and factor that into the $1.7 billion sale price they were looking for. All of that understood. Let's get to some very quick and immediate takeaways here. So this is breaking news. These are my first and initial and best thoughts I can give you at this moment. We'll talk more about this as news develops and as reaction comes out to it. But to be fair, on the Pohlad family side, I do want to say this. Their initial statement, which I went back and read from October of 2024, it didn't say for sure that they were selling the Twins. They were very clear on saying they were exploring the process of selling the Twins, which, as we found out and as things went along, it seemed more clear that, again, this was going to happen. And Rob Manfred's comment was that he was, quote, confident that a transaction will take place. That was July 15th during the All-Star break. That is less than a month ago as I'm recording this here on August 13th. I'm not saying Rob Manfred lied to you. I'm saying that Rob Manfred either didn't fully know what was going on behind the scenes, or he was led to believe that, and then the Pohlad family changed their mind, which could have easily happened within the last month or less. But this just goes to show you that things aren't done until they're actually done. And I don't want to speak this into existence for Tampa Bay Rays fans, but you know that process, that agreement of Stuart Sternberg to sell his team to a different ownership group, there was an exclusive window, then it was supposed to happen by the end of September maybe, that's right around the corner. Like, it's not done, nothing's done until it's actually done. Case in point, the Minnesota Twins, up for sale, potential buyers, it's going to happen, and then they pull out of the deal. I do feel for fans right now who are upset. They feel misled. They feel the team is going to proceed without direction or the same direction. Or here's my biggest question. Taking on more ownership entities, like more parties, I don't know what you want to call them, investors, that's really what it is. Does that actually make the team competitive again? Are you a better baseball team because you have more backing? Maybe. Possibly. But I want to go back to the too many chefs in the kitchen. Or is it cooks in the kitchen? I always get that wrong. Too many decision makers. You've already got 20 Pohlad grandchildren. You've got one that's kind of the head of the baseball team, but there's a lot of voices, and they're not all going to agree on what to do with the baseball team, what to do with the business side of it. Now you're adding more voices to that conversation. Does that actually improve the baseball team, or does that improve the business elements of the baseball team. And I get it, one can help the other, but I think this complicates things more than it streamlines things. That's my worry for the Minnesota Twins, and especially their fans. So, again, something I did not expect to be saying here in mid-August of 2025, the Minnesota Twins had been officially up for sale. That was the exploration. Now we can tell you that, as of right now, the Minnesota Twins are not for sale. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Helps me, the video, and the channel. And make sure you've tapped that subscribe button too, because that means I definitely get to see you back here next time.